Hello and welcome to Thursday's interview here on Viking.TV with me, Anne Diamond. And this week we're celebrating everything Norway. So, hello alle sammen. Hello everyone. And what a great week to celebrate Norway as we marked Norway Day on Tuesday. And I'm sure, like me, you're dying to see amongst all of the rest of the world's destinations, the amazing Northern Lights and the fjords on a Norwegian cruise. And what about the food and the lifestyle Norway has to offer us? Well, the story of Norwegians has often been about brave sailors, Vikings even, venturing out and exploring the world. But my next guest has actually done it in reverse, if you like. She grew up in Salt Lake City in the USA and met her husband, a Norwegian, when they were both studying in England. After traveling the world and living in various spots, they ended up in Norway and loved it so much they have stayed. And they now want everyone to understand and perhaps embrace the concept of slow Nordic living. She is now a celebrated and best-selling food and culture author, writing her blog from her idyllic 17th century farm in a valley in the east of Norway. She encourages us all to live mindfully, appreciate the food we eat by understanding where it comes from and enjoying the sociable side of eating with friends and family. Her blog and book include a huge selection of recipes, Norwegian folk stories, and explore the cultural history of some of Norway's most popular dishes. I have to say, when you dip into her online, in print, you just ask yourself, why not live more simply and easily? I'm fascinated, intrigued, and I'm very happy to welcome Nevada Berg to Viking.TV from her home, Howto. Hello, Nevada, welcome.
Hi, Anne. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about Howto. Why is it so called and what does it mean?
Well, Howto is actually, it's an old Norwegian word and it means small house or small cabin. And what we think is the farm that we're on, which dates back, we have it in records till about the 1600s. So we believe that the house we are in now was actually built in the 1950s. So it was much later. But before that, there would have been a really small little house kind of built, and it was a much bigger space and bigger land. So we think it just refers to that. And we have some evidence where there would have been a small little house. So we think that's what it means, but it's very
little idyllic little house.
Yeah.
In a wonderful. Can you describe to me the sort of area that it is in?
Well, we are actually in Neumadal, which is the medieval valley of Norway. And because we have the most medieval buildings of all of Norway, we have 4 state churches in the valley. And it's so remote. It's kind of this really hidden gem, I always describe it, because it's green. It's kind of the path most people will take. The drive would be a different road. So it's this really kind of underdeveloped, really piece of heaven. It's very mountainy. The valley, the river runs through it, leads up to the fjords, up where Flom is from Oslo. So it's just this kind of dreamy green landscape. And of course, we get lots of snow in the winter. So we get kind of the best of all the seasons.
How did you find it?
It's quite a funny story, actually. But we were living in Rome before we moved here. And we decided to settle down, and we kind of looked at natural places, Bergen and Oslo, and it just kind of this happened, and we didn't know where it was. We hadn't heard of this place. And then we were looking for some houses. We asked around and said, does anyone know of us? Because we really wanted a farm. We've always lived in the capital cities in the apartment. And we're like, we want to settle and have, land and grow our food and get more attached to the nature. And we asked around, and someone mentioned, yeah, we think someone might be wanting to sell this farm. And so we got in touch, and my husband flew down to look at it. And then that upcoming week, we bought it. And then 3 weeks later, we moved here to this lovely place. So,
but like you say, you've lived in capital cities before. You come from the United States. I can't imagine a much more different or a much bigger decision. It must have been a very, very big decision, quite a brave one.
Well, we had been living, as you mentioned earlier, we met in England. We had lived there for about 5 years, and we lived in London, in Bournemouth, and then we moved to Mozambique, Maputo, and then we were living in Rome. So kind of been a bit nomadic for a while. So this, which was kind of a big jump, but at the same time, you know, we were so nomadic anyway, we knew that if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But we also had been all those capital cities, love the city, I do love it. But at the same time, we have our son, and who's now 9. And we thought it would be a good time to kind of settle down. We've done the city. We're ready to kind of go a bit more rural and enjoy that part of life too.
And so what happened first? The interest in food and the cooking, the blog, or did that happen after you moved?
I've always been interested in food, I have to say. I have a love affair with it. And I think I've always, like, I love cookbooks, and my idea of relaxation would be to sneak into the library and just start flipping through pages of cookbooks to see the beautiful visuals. But it was kind of a journey, because it wasn't something I ever thought I was going to get into. And I just ended up going that way. And whenever we lived anywhere, like in England and other countries, it was a good step, because it made me approach the food in a way of what can I find here in this place and in this culture, instead of relying on what I knew and what I'd grown up with, to really understand the place and to not be so, and to get more rooted, was to discover that food culture. And so that carried with me. And when we were in Rome and we knew we were going to be moving here, that's when I thought, what would be my dream job? And it was going to be combining my love for food and photography and writing. And I thought, what would that look like? And I thought, well, I would love to understand more about the Norwegian food culture, because what I had known was really what had come through with my husband's parents and his family, and the other cookbooks I could find, which were quite limited in its understanding of the, you know, variety that is found here. And I thought it would be so fascinating to really explore and discover that. And since we're moving to this place, and you know, I don't have a job, and this might be an opportunity for me to create and do something I really love, let's just go for it. And so that's kind of where all the idea popped up in Rome, and then we dove into it as soon as we moved here.
Food is one of those, it's something that's common to, I suppose, all of us, but you discover more about food when you talk to people. And that's what you seem to enjoy doing, is talking to the people and finding out their stories.
Oh, yeah. And because I think, you know, food tells so much more than what's on the plate. And you can really start to understand people and know a bit more about them when you see what they're eating and why. And also, everybody has an attachment to certain types of foods. So when we came here, oh my goodness, it was such a lovely, the community was so nice, and they opened their arms and they were able to share their recipes. And, you know, it could be anything, like the memories, or they love a certain recipe and they think you must try this, and this comes from here, or this is from this person, and this is why I make it. And that brings the dish and the ingredients to life in a way that won't happen if you just have it on the plate and you carry on with your day. So to be able to speak with people and learn from them, I think it creates such a bridge, you know, between us. And I love that food also does that.
Yeah, and you've come up with some amazing different ingredients too. We'll talk more about some of the unusual ones in a while. But obviously, when you say Norway, to most people, they think fish. Obviously has to be an incredibly important part of the food culture. And of course, let me just introduce a little video here that's been made by Viking's own Karina Hagen, telling us about fishing and Norway, what we all think of. It's absolutely glorious. Have a look at this.
Along Norway's majestic coast, there's long been a tradition of harvesting a living from the ocean, with hardy seafarers leaving safe harbours in the hunt for fish. Today, these waters still hold that precious bounty, and they're ready to challenge those who love the outdoors, albeit in a much more fun and comfortable way. Line fishing is very popular, but hand lining is the technique many locals prefer. It's quick and easy to learn, since all you need is fishing line, lure, and a bit of good luck. In some of Norway's more remote bays, an exotic prize requires a different kind of fishing. The catch, the highly prized red king crab. measuring up to 6 feet between their claws. At water's edge, the traditional tents of the native Sami people are a relaxing place to sample these tasty crustaceans from the deep. The quest for fish can extend into the fjords, where sparkling rivers offer a tranquil setting in which to experience the pristine wilderness, while enjoying the sheer delight of mastering an entirely new skill. Norway's breathtaking waterways are some of the best places I've found to get in touch with life as the locals live it. I hope you'll do as I did and head out to explore the wonders of Norway for yourself.
I must say, when you watch people fishing, and obviously if you go fishing yourself, that makes you hungry straight away, doesn't it? There are all sorts of amazing excursions that anyone going on a Viking cruise can do. Crab safari, for instance, or into the midnight sun, that traditional fishing experience, which must be wonderful. And like I said, make you so hungry. But you too love your seafood, and you've gone on a bit of a crab safari yourself, haven't you?
I did, yeah. I went on, there's a little island off of Molde, which is north of Bergen, and that's called Unna. And it's only 13 inhabitants now, but this is the island where my husband's father grew up and his family was born. So this is a really special place, and we went out and they took us on the little boat and we got the crabs and came back and cooked right there. He cooked it in the fresh seawater, and that's all it was. You know, it was just fresh crabs cooked in seawater, most delicious, wonderful taste. If you can imagine, you know, the sweetness of it. You don't need the butter. You just need it. It was just so lovely, so flavorful, and such a really testament to the amazing quality of the ingredients that you will find in Norway.
Had you ever done anything like that before, or was that something that you first did when you sort of just decided to go Norwegian?
Yeah, this was the first crab fishing I had done, and it was fantastic. And I, you know, once you do it, you want to do it forever because it's so much fun. But we don't live in the coast, so we don't have that opportunity all the time. But when you do, you must take it.
It looks mouth-watering. Let's have a look at your excursion.
So I've made my way inland over to the western coast of Norway, to Molde. I've taken the ferry to the small traditional village of Unna, fishing village, and it is so picturesque and so tranquil here. It's got the lighthouse behind me. It's all these clusters of houses. Now today I think there's only like around 11 inhabitants that actually stay here year round, but you could just imagine what it would have been like in its heyday, with the fishermen going out bringing in all the crabs and the lobster and the fish, and then they'd be drying it out on the docks and salting it to go out for sale. It's so picturesque. All you have in front of you is the ocean, the sound of the seagulls, the salt water in your hair. This is coastal Norway. Alright, so we've collected the crabs from the sea and we put them in, cook them in some boiling water. And now, this is when we get to feast. Fresh crab, straight from the sea, right there. Boiled in salted water, salt from the sea. Probably the freshest ingredient you can get here. Straight from Unna. Perfect.
It's interesting though, you don't just love cooking, you like to understand the sort of cultural history of a recipe.
Oh yeah, I mean, to me, like I mentioned before, there's so much more happening that's on the plate. And I love history. I'm fascinated by the stories and the tales of it all. And where does something come from? And, you know, everything has that story. And, you know, the ingredients and the history, and food is, it's an evolution, and it borrows and you create with it. And so in order, as we say, to understand people and to learn more about a culture, you can go into these dishes and why it is important to them, and, you know, why you take things like gravlax or these really important cultural iconic foods in Norway, and you trace it back to, you know, a time when that's what they had to do, when curing was very necessary, and, you know, it was a specific process. So I think, and then you kind of can see how it grows and evolves, and you just start to understand and appreciate everything a bit more when you look at it in that way. And I think you learn more. And it's probably also just that I'm a bit geeky when it comes to food and loving the stories, but I just think it really enlivens the whole meal. And I think, you know, when we go out nowadays, I think a lot of people prefer the stories behind it, why they're eating it, where the things come from, because it just means so much more.
So tell me about Norway's national dish, which is, I don't know how to pronounce it, fårikål?
Fårikål, yeah.
Okay. What is it?
Well, it's so easy because it's lamb and cabbage. That's it. And fårikål means lamb in cabbage. And it's a stew. It's layered. It's in a pot, and it just simmers for hours. So it all kind of melts in together, in the flavors. And you use peppercorns and salt. And that is it. It's incredibly simple, but very flavorful. It's served in September, and there's actually a fårikål day, which is, I think, it's the last Thursday in September. And it's because September is when, so in the summertime, it's the summer farming. So all the animals go up to the summer farms in the mountains, and they graze, and it's lovely. And so the lambs and the sheep up there. And then in September, early September, they're bringing them down for the slaughter. So hence, that's when it's sheep season. And that's when the dish is at its peak, and that's when you eat it.
Well, the way you do it, it certainly looks fabulous. On your website, you don't mind, you do tutorials basically, don't you? I mean, as you say, it's simple, but you show people how they can do it themselves. And in this video, it's Norway's national dish, fårikål. Let's have a look at how you teach people to do it. I must say, Nevada, honestly, it looks gorgeous in the kitchen, but there's a picture in your book showing it as you cooked it in the wild. Looks even better in the wild. There's something about cooking outdoors, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. There's such a magic and a charm about it, and the connection and the ambiance. And, you know, this is an interesting spin because it would not have been cooked over the fire, but, you know, it creates a new flavor, a new way of doing it. Brings people outside, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that you can be inside in the kitchen, and then you can also take your kitchen outdoors. And the kitchen doesn't need to have walls. It can just be wherever you are.
Absolutely. I like that. Kitchen doesn't need to have walls. In fact, isn't there, again, another word for it in Norwegian, something like koselig?
Oh, yes, koselig. That coziness, the feeling of, you know, it's all the senses being evoked, and it's this idea that, which Norwegians, you know, it's the highest compliment is when something is koselig, and it's where you just feel invited and you feel warm, and it's all those things that help to make it, whether it's the nature itself or your like candles, or, you know, the sweater like the one you're wearing right now, and you've got your wool socks on, and those are the kinds of things that just make us feel really good and welcomed.
Exactly. Snow outside, warm and coziness inside. Your book has some wonderful pictures in it. Did you take them yourself?
I did, thank you. Yeah. I quite enjoy. I mean, I think for me, as I mentioned earlier too, being a very visual person and looking at cookbooks, it's always about pictures as well, because the pictures also will tell the story as much as I can write it and we can put out a recipe and I can show a dish. But when you kind of show all the elements, you're also telling a visual story. And that's what I try to convey in the book and in the website as well. It's just, you know, how all the elements come together to complete this story for each dish.
Yeah, we saw there brunost, waffles, and that is a blodkake.
That's a blodkake. That'll be a traditional dish, especially for 17th of May coming up. It's a very, you know, May is cake month in Norway because it's 17th of May, it's baptisms, it's confirmations. It's like, so they call it the cake month, and that will be one of the many that will be featured.
Now, tell me about brown cheese. I don't understand about brown cheese. What is it? Why is it important?
Have you had it yet before?
No, not yet.
Yet.
No, I will. I'll have it this week, I promise you. But tell me more about the whole history of it.
Brown cheese is the iconic Norwegian cheese. You know, if you're really looking for something that is Norwegian, the brown cheese is. And it was a setter cheese, which means it's the summer, when I was mentioning the animals going to the summer farm. Well, all the animals would always go into the summer farm and the women were in charge, and that's when you have all the dairy products being made and milk products. So summertime was the dairy season, and brunost, or brown cheese, is actually a byproduct of cheese making because it's made from, you cook down the whey until it caramelizes, and that's what gives it that beautiful brown rich color. And there's a few types. There's ones with goat's cheese, and then there's the ones with cow's milk and cream, which is a lot more milder than the goat's ones, which is the darker colors tend to be. They're much stronger, more goat flavored. So there's varieties, and they're still made all over Norway, different varieties and on these small farms. And it's just so idyllic. And it's one of those flavors, you know, when I first came to Norway, it was something that I fell in love with quite quickly. I remember eating a lot of it the first summer I was here. Too much of it, because then I think, luckily, you know, we moved away and moved back to England for a bit. And so I had a break, which was good, because then I could come back and love it all over again. But it's a wonderful cheese. It melts really well, and it goes savory and sweet. And so I have such a fun time using that as an ingredient and kind of playing with it to give a very Norwegian feel to dishes.
Yeah, I'm told it's sweet. I mean, I can't quite get my head around. I've got to taste it myself. But it's a cheese, but it is actually sweet.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's got kind of a nutty, kind of caramelly. It's not always so sweet, because actually that would be probably the cow's milk one. The one with goat's cheese can be very salty and very strong flavored. So there are variations, but it does have, the one pictured there would be one that's a bit more sweet. But, you know, it blends really well into the savory dishes as well, which we also add to the wild stews. It's traditional to add brown cheese into that because it just adds such amazing flavor with the wild meats and the cream and like chanterelles. So it's just a great versatile cheese, or you can do it also just put a slice on bread or a waffle as well. But there's a shot there as well. And this is, it's just it's a great cheese, you know, and I think people either really love it or maybe not so much, but if you don't like eating it just straight off, then you must cook with it because it adds such amazing flavor to dishes.
Well, now I understand it. I'm going to try it. I know they serve it at Mamsen's on Viking ships. Viking viewers probably know an awful lot more about brown cheese than I do. Here is Viking's own Karina Hagen telling us more.
In the land of the Northern Lights, locals carved out a life amid Norway's imposing landscapes. But they're not the only ones who enjoy this rugged terrain. Goats thrive here too, and archaeologists say they may have roamed these lands for 5,000 years. And from these goats come my favorite cheese in the entire world, Norwegian getost, Norwegian brown goat cheese. Flink pike. Getost, also known as brunost, can be traced back centuries to the high mountain Seter. the alpine pastures where the dairy maids worked in the spring and summer when the men were off to sea. It was here that getost was invented in 1863, when Howto started experimenting and stumbled upon the taste that grew into a phenomenon. The treasure for which Norwegians still thank the humble goat. Technically, getost is not a cheese at all. Instead of curd, the whey is used, combined with milk and cream. A process of simmering and stirring that takes several hours with the milk sugar caramelizing as the water evaporates. Then it's into the molds, and once cool, the getost is ready to eat.
This traditional cheese is from that summer farming up in the mountains. So it was a way to preserve the milk, the source. Also, it was perfect to take away on long voyages. This brown cheese you can keep for years.
Norwegians love getost and devour more than 12,000 tons of it every year. Locals believe you haven't really experienced Norway if you haven't feasted on getost. So when you're in Norway, remember the contribution these gentle creatures make to one of our favorite foods. But be careful, you may just be tempted to take one of these cute little getost makers home with you. Norway is a wonderland of traditions, and we look forward to sharing with you her many treasures.
I think the fact that it's brown is why I haven't tried it yet, because I didn't really fully understand it. In fact, Karina was there explaining it, but you've been on your own cheese journey, haven't you?
I have. I was lucky enough to work with the Scandinavian Food Channel and Tina, who is a large producer of brunost here and internationally. And just as a lead up to the World Championships of Cheese, the awards, we got to go and we interviewed and got to talk to we kind of did the whole journey, going from the farmers and their animals and hearing their stories to all the way down to the production line and the factories and how people are making it, and to then, at the end when there's the actual product. So it was such a lovely way to connect again the nature, the natural element to what we're eating, and the whole process and all the people that are involved in just, making that piece of cheese that you go and you eat, and to see that everything that's all the factors, the sunlight, even all that stuff adds into it. And so it was such a really beautiful thing to experience.
Yeah, I mean, cheese does tell a cultural story in itself, doesn't it? It's about the animals and the people, the seasons, and even, where the geography of where it all happens.
Exactly. I mean, it's everything from what the animals are eating and how their life. And one of the great things in Norway as well is, our animals, they graze. They still go to the summer pastures. They graze freely on these wild grasses, and they have these, so much more space to just kind of roam and do these things, and the seasons and what it's just all plays into the flavor. And once the milk, and then that brings the flavor into the cheese, and the people and the hard work that the farmers are putting into it, and then those who are creating the cheese, and then also taking what's been created before and then adding in new twists and bringing forth new products. So it's such a lovely, testament to the whole journey and everyone involved in the process.
Well, let's take a look at a little clip from your cheese journey right now.
My favorite thing to do while traveling is to learn about local traditions while sharing a good meal. That's why I'm heading to Neumadal Gjestehus at Salbo, a place where people from all over gather to celebrate and relax. And of course, to enjoy great local food. People say that coming to this place is like coming into someone's home. Something owners Bjarne and Margrethe take great pride in. Originally an old farm, Neumadal Gjestehus can trace its origins as far back as the 16th century and has been in the family ever since. Before creating the Gjestehus, Bjorn and Margrethe were dairy farmers for over 30 years in addition to holding other jobs. Today, they serve over 4,000 visitors every year and make most of the food themselves.
They care deeply about high-quality local products and live by the motto that good food is more than just satisfying people's hunger.
So can you guys tell me why you do what you do?
Nej, vi gör det fordi at det er veldig interessant, det er veldig utfordrende. Vi møter jo folk fra hele verden som er, og det å møte folk fra andre kulturer er jo alltid veldig, veldig positivt.
Og så må vi være glad i mennesker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The connection that you make
Yeah.
with the people that come through.
Ofte så tar de rundt oss og gir oss en klem og sier tusen takk for at jeg fikk komme hjem til dere. Så det er jo...
Margrethe and Bjarne have something prepared in advance. Snøfrisk served on homemade crackers with rowanberry jam
Amazing.
and a plate of various types of local salami and Kvitland cheese with local traditional flatbread baked at the neighboring farm.
Det fatet inneholder alt som vi vil stå for. Det er lokal mat, tar en veldig høy kvalitet, og kombinert med flatbrød, pølse av hjort, eller pølse av som er produsert i området her, så blir det en perfekt start for gjestene våre.
It's a very good combination.
Oh, Nevada, I'm so hungry just watching. Some of your recipes include ingredients that are probably quite unusual to most of us, like spruce tips. Moose. I mean, I would never have tasted a moose, reindeer, or you must have come across some really interesting ingredients. Anything that you didn't want to include?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's just what's so amazing about, Norway and embracing the natural landscape is that you want to find what are the ingredients that are available seasonally and locally to you. And especially for us inland, we have moose and we have the reindeer and deer. And we don't have the coast, so we don't have all the seafood right there, but we have mountain trout. And the wild edibles that are growing around is just fantastic. And it's so inspiring. And spruce tips are one of my favorites. And those are going to be popping up probably in a week now. So I'm very excited. And I think that's it. It's about learning what's available, right outside your door. And in seeing how people used to use them and create dishes with them. And we kind of became removed from that. We have our grocery stores and we have our really convenient ways of getting food. But to be able to just walk out your door and to forage for an ingredient, to find something unusual, I mean, that's so powerful. It's so uplifting, and you really connect again with nature. And the wonderful thing about spruce tips, for example, is that they have this beautiful it's earthy, but they're also acidic, so they're a bit kind of like a lemon taste to it. So they're great to add to things if you want a bit more of that lemon. Great for vitamin C. I mean, they used to be eaten to ward off things like scurvy. So the health benefits plus the culinary tastes of it all is something that people would have known a long time ago. Maybe it's slowly gotten pushed back, but it's coming back around again. And I think so much freedom in knowing what's around you and whether you have access to that, but you might have something else in your local area that you have access to. So it's about exploring and it's another reason to go and have an adventure.
As you say, but you wouldn't know about these things unless somebody told you, and it's talking to the people. But when we talk about spruce tips, are you talking about what I think of as a Christmas tree, a Norwegian spruce? And it's the little new tips that are growing.
Yeah.
And just take them off and use them in cooking.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to come. They come for only about 2 weeks, at least for us. It's a very short season. Because you don't, I mean, soon they're going to be a full grown, the leaf there. And so you want to take it when they're just babies and they're still soft. And you can use it. I do it in the cookbook. I have fried spruce tips, beer battered fried spruce tips. They make a fantastic syrup. So we dip it into the syrup. And the syrup is bright red of all things. That's the natural color that comes from it, which is just glorious. And you can do it raw. I put it on oatmeal, porridges. You can make breads with it. So many lovely dishes.
Who would have thought? Well, who told you that? How did you find that out?
Well, I think I'm just always wanting to know what's growing and what's going around. And when I came to Norway, of course, the connection to nature is so much stronger. And so I was really interested in also finding not only the ingredients and the traditional recipes that are being made, but what's growing around us. And the whole idea of foraging came really from knowing that chanterelles are available. And, Norwegians they love going out and picking berries, so wild blueberries and cloudberries. And that was kind of what started it. So once you start there, you see what else is growing around. And so I knew spruce tips and the syrup from spruce tips, but I hadn't found anywhere who'd done the fried spruce tips. So that was kind of it was one of those creative things where you think, will this work? And it worked really, really well. And that's what it is. It's about finding these ingredients and not straying so much from the culture, but also finding new ways of using them that maybe people haven't tried before, that can inspire people to then want to go out and also try and use these dishes in their own cooking.
Well, if anyone wants to be inspired, they can go onto your website and have a look at some of your how-to videos, because you actually do teach. There's a little video here on how to make Norwegian skålebolle. Does that make any sense? I don't know. If we look at
yeah.
But this is a childhood favorite, I gather.
It is. It's actually school buns, which the name translates to. And these were, I think the story is kind of that it goes back into, I think it was the 1950s, where kids would get this as a treat on the last day of school or give it to their teacher. And that's why they called them school buns. And it's basically a very, we have the bolla, which is the basic cardamom sweet bun. And then that recipe is used pretty much for most other types of bolla dishes. And this one is where you put custard in the center, and then it has a lovely glaze and then a shredded coconut on the outside. And it's one of my boys' favorites. They love this one. And it's a great, and now I think in June, people still keep to the whole, end of school. So they'll have them. There's a skålebolle day. And they're good. You can find them in the cafes. And
I love the idea of a skålebolle day, but it does look really tasty, and I can imagine children absolutely adore them. You clearly do.
Oh yeah, it's not just for the kids. We say it's for them, but really, it's for the rest of us.
It looks great. You've got another video here where you teach us how to make sour cream porridge. Let's have a look at that. And again, I love your kitchen, by the way. I don't know if this is just a video set, but it's just got that lovely simplicity about it.
Thank you. This is actually in the basement of our house. There was a little old griddle that was there. And so sometimes I go down there. We have this lovely wood-fired stove to cook it, which is a good thing to cook with. This is rumagret, which is a very traditional dish. And this is a summer dish, actually, because this is what would have been made at the summer setter, as well as the brown cheese that we talked about. And it's basically sour cream, but we should note that sour cream in Norway is about, it's usually 38% fat percentage. So this isn't just any, no low fat, nothing like that. It's high fat content. And it's not even that sour. When you get really great sour cream, especially in Norway, and you try it fresh, it's just a little bit of acidity. So it's nothing like at the shop that would be really strong. And then you cook it down with a bit of flour. And what basically happens is the fat separates. So you get this beautiful layer of butter, and you kind of scoop that out and save it. And so when you serve it, you pour the butter on top, and then you get cinnamon and sugar. And this was actually a high holiday dish, so served in the summertime. And it was a great dish that they would use for groups because, and fests and parties, or like a wedding. Because when the milk, if it was getting really warm in the summer, it would turn a little sour, and there could make, this kind of a dish that would serve a lot of people. It's quite heavy too.
Yeah.
I tend to serve this with cured sheep leg, which is called fenalår. And nowadays you'll usually get a drink of soft, which is like a cordial, like a blackcurrant cordial, drink to go with it. But there you see the fat, the layer of fat that was cooked from the sour cream. Oh, and it's just gorgeous. And this is a dish that we have, once a year.
I can imagine, very tasty, but also incredibly filling.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so heavy, but it is so good. And that's the thing. If you have the opportunity in Norway, you go to the setter to have it, because you can, of course, you can make it, but nothing tastes better than when it's straight from the setter. It's just divine.
It does look divine. Yeah. Tell me about gravlax. I gather it's a combination of two different Scandinavian words, basically meaning buried salmon.
Yes. Yeah, buried salmon, because the history is that in the old days, the Vikings, that to cure it, they would dig it under the sand and bury it for a few days. And then you have that active osmosis. Luckily now we use refrigeration to cure our fish, which is not as dangerous. But it's such, gravlax is just luxurious, but it's one of those dishes that, although it's like you look at it and it is luxury, it's so simple to make at home, because all you need is salt and sugar. You need your fillet, and you can use dill or another spice or herb, and you put it in the fridge to let it cure for 2 to 3 days, and you press it together and then it's ready. So it's quick. You just have to wait a few days, but other than that, it's a very easy, accessible, lovely dish, and it's something you can have year round. And it's a gorgeous dish, isn't it?
Yeah. And yet again, it's about less is more, isn't it? It's not about the volume of food, it's about the tastiness of it.
Exactly. If you've got good quality salmon, then, it's just another way of when you have something and you have more of it and you have leftovers, this is how you preserve it so you can eat it for later. And you can freeze gravlax, which I don't know many people know, but it's something that you can last for 6 months. So it's another way of continuing the process of preservation, especially for us here when we have such 6 months of a really long winter. To have that fallback is really nice.
Yeah. I think we've got some more pictures of you using spruce tips again with is that the cured trout?
Yes, this is our local trout, because we have the lakes up here in the mountains, and I thought it would be such a nice combination to do the two of them, because this is the mountain area, so the spruce is growing right next to the lakes, and you're pairing the two in their elements. And yeah, again, the spruce tips are adding a nice lemon flavor to it, so it kind of enlivens it a bit more. And it's fun. It's a really fun dish to do.
And juniper berries you use.
Oh, yes. Oh, I love juniper berries. We have juniper bushes growing everywhere. I haven't actually gone and foraged for my own berries yet, but juniper berries you can access at the store, you can access online or an international shop. And it just adds, they have that piney flavor again, earthy. It's typically used again with the wild stews, that picture we showed earlier. To just enhance the flavor. And then the picture you showed there was the rhubarb pie with juniper berry.
Oh, that looks wonderful. Rhubarb and juniper berry pie. Absolutely fabulous.
Good combination.
Oh,
it's actually, I had a lovely email from a group of 70-year-old ladies who emailed to say that they made it and it was their favorite pie they've ever had, and that they know their pie because they've been around for so long, and so they would love to try something new. So.
How about this, though? Norwegian moose stew in a forest setting. That looks fabulous, too. That's a Norwegian moose.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a lot of moose. We have a lot of hunting in this area as well, because we are in the mountains and the valley. So it's something that we locally have a lot of, more so. And it's a lovely, it's a very lean meat. It's a very, it's not too gamey, but it's just really nice. And when you pair it with chanterelles, which is also very earthy, and the juniper berries, again, you're starting to see how all the natural elements that grow together or are together come together into a dish, which is lovely.
Oh, we've got a lovely shot of you collecting chanterelles. Do they just grow around? You can just pick them. They look wonderful. I love chanterelle mushrooms.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I know. This is actually the chanterelles are the things that got me really interested. Actually, piqued my interest even more so before we came to Norway, because a Norwegian friend of ours in Rome had told me that she wished she had paid a bit more attention when her father, they'd go fishing, and so she could have learned more about the food culture. And they'd go chanterelle hunting, and I was like, "Whoa, you got to stop there. Did you just say chanterelles? Are they growing in Norway?" I had no idea, because that's not something that was showing up in all these Norwegian cookbooks. And so that was kind of the one thing I was like, when we go there, that's one of the first things I'm going to try and find. And I did. And that was the very first chanterelle hunt I went on, that picture. And, you have to find them. They're not just they're not just right there. You have to kind of know where to go. You have to have your spots. It might not come every year, so you have to just kind of take the time to hunt for them, which is also really gratifying because you've taken the time to try and find it. So when you do find it, it really feels like a treasure.
Well, it's what you said earlier, it's connecting with nature, isn't it? Yes. We've got some lovely pictures of you with cakes and pastries, of course, which is, again, something we automatically, I suppose, think of when we think of Norwegian food, making beautiful cakes, as you say, for Norwegian National Day. Did you say it was Cake Week or Cake Month?
Cake Month, May.
Wow.
Although technically every month is cake.
Well, yeah, of course.
But yeah, that one right there, we've got bløtkake. I mean, the pastries in Norway and the cakes are they're just so good. And they're so simple. I mean, the bløtkake is a sponge cake. It's a layered sponge cake with whipped cream and berries. And you can add a bit of jam in there, or you can add a little bit of custard if you want. But that's it. And I think that's what makes the baking here also really delightful, is that it's easy to do, but it's also very simple ingredients that just taste amazing because you don't have to do so much. You just put them together.
In your blog, you help us understand some really fascinating Norwegian concepts, like now, allemannsretten.
Yeah, allemannsretten. And that's this, this lovely concept again, that nature and the public land should be open to everybody. So that means you can go camping, you can put your tent up anywhere you want, you can enjoy nature, it's open for all. And that includes the foraging aspects of it too. And, that you can walk, not really tromping through someone's yard necessarily, but you can, all the public space is open and you can explore it to your heart's content.
And there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. That's part of the whole concept, I guess. What about friluftsliv?
Yeah, friluftsliv is the concept. Is basically free air life is the translation, but it's outdoor recreation. And it's just this beautiful word to encompass the idea that life should be lived outdoors as well, in nature. We should go out. The kids in the kindergarten, they're always outside, whether it's rain, snow, doesn't matter. You're outside playing. And that's the whole concept. It starts from a very young age. It's about this idea of just getting out there, and that's why I always say there's, you don't have a kitchen. It doesn't have to be inside. You can have it outside. There's always a reason to be out and to go hiking and enjoy nature and all the benefits you get. The health benefits as well, just from being out in fresh air, is amazing. And so it's really taking that hold of that idea and applying it to every day.
It's interesting you say that, because I know there's a movement that's sort of going across the whole world now called forest schooling, and I know it started in Norway, where children are taught not in it's like you said, kitchens don't have to have walls, classrooms don't have to have walls either.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And you see that, and that's what my son experienced in his schooling, and he does still here today. And it's this idea that, kids can just have fun, and that they learn by climbing trees, by getting dirty. You find math, science, everything is found outside, and you can enjoy that. And I think starting young is so good and so important, because it'll be much easier to carry with throughout your whole life.
Do you think you'll ever go back and live in a city again?
I don't know. I think one of the nice things about Norway is that if we ever did leave and you go to one of the cities, so also Bergen, you're still right there next to nature anyway. So it doesn't, I think all of Norway, you don't feel so excluded from the natural elements. But I can say that we really love where we are now. And you're like, hello.
Am I dog going mad?
It's all right, like mine does too. No, but we love it, and I think we're so happy right now, and there's so much still to learn and to experience. So I'm very, very grateful for where we are.
Yeah, it's a gift in a way, isn't it? That sort of experience, and I suppose one day you might take a choice to do something different, but you've experienced it. That's the main thing. And you've brought us a wonderful book and a wonderful blog. Is that what you're going to continue doing?
Yeah, there's a few exciting things. Actually, where I'm at right now, I am in the old Vegley train station, and it's basically just been redone and repainted back from 1927 when it was first built. And so the idea is to create a food and cultural center here, and to offer in-person cooking classes and workshops so that people can come. And they can really experience, the Norwegian cooking, all the wonderful things that I've gotten to experience. And also we have the old kitchen garden out that we're going to try and the plan is to turn it into a community garden to put more emphasis on the youth and the elderly here. So that's one project that I've been working on. And then, of course, there's the second cookbook that's going to be coming out in spring of next year, 2023. And that's exciting. And I handed in the manuscript and all the photos, and now it's in the good hands and the designers and everything. So that will be something to look forward to.
It always amazes me when I interview anyone who does food writing and particularly recipe books, how you continue to come up with new ideas. How do you do it?
That's a good question. I had someone ask me that the other day as well. And I don't know. I think it's something I just love food, and I think luckily have experienced so much of it and in different places that I have a lot of referencing, and something I always observed as a young child anyway, and also looking through cookbooks. So there's a lot, a library back there in the brain. But I also love the idea of, on the site and in the book, we always look at the traditional recipes as well, and those are things that you don't go far from. And then there's looking at Norwegian ingredients and how do we create dishes that aren't fusion and that don't kind of leave the boundaries of the culture, but yet can we find new ways to do it? And I just find the challenge really exciting to come up with new dishes. And I'm always thinking things will, might trigger it. It might be looking at something in nature, or it might be a picture of a dish, and I just see something else into it. For me, it's just fun. It's a creative element that I thoroughly enjoy, and I feel lucky enough that I can continuously come up with something because I have pages and pages.
And do you set yourself cooking days where you actually sort of do an awful lot of experimentation in the kitchen?
I'm kind of all over the place. I'll be perfectly honest. Some days will be cooking. There's no set days for me because it depends what's happening. It might be I might be doing a cooking class, or I might be doing an event or speaking. But then there might be a recipe I need to do, or a recipe that I'm working with a partnership for, or the cookbook, which obviously will take a lot of time. And there were days I scheduled in weeks for the cookbook where I just went 5 days straight and, put as many recipes as I could. So it depends and it varies. And also when the seasons come, as I said, now spring is here, so all the spruce tips will be coming in a week. And if you miss them and you miss the season, it's gone till next year. So I feel like this is such a busy time because you want to make sure you get everything. The wild garlic is here, and then there'll be the berries, and all of these short seasons. So you just have to kind of grasp and make sure you have time set aside for those things. So it's fluid, and it goes with the seasons.
Sounds brilliant. You've given us a glimpse into a really lovely world. Thank you so much. Just leafing through your book, as I said at the very beginning, just makes you think, why don't we all do that? Live a simpler and tastier life. But thank you so much for being with us today. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. Made me very hungry, though, I think.
I know. I'm always hungry, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Ada, thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely brilliant meeting you.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for that look into your lifestyle and your beautiful book. Thank you. Well, there we go. Next week, as we celebrate the world of music, my guest is going to be someone I met on my last cruise. You may have met him too. He's absolutely astonishing violinist. He's called Doug Cameron. Until I see you again, though, live well, stay safe, and goodbye.